Yo guys, what's going on? It's Shauno here, and today I'm just bringing an update to my last video for the Phase 3 Fire Mage, the best talents, the best in slot gear, and the sim numbers. We know the actual sim numbers now because we know the gear set, so it's all been imported in. But first of all, we'll look at the talents. So this will be the best talents that I've simmed so far. So 5 out of 5 in Impact, 5 out of 5 in Ignite, 2 out of 2 Incinerate, 2 out of 2 in Burning Soul, 1 out of 1 if you want Pyroblast, 3 out of 3 Improved Scorch, 3 out of 3 Master of Elements, 3 out of 3 Critical Mass, 1 in Blast Wave if you want to play Blast Wave. You don't have to play these talents, you could play Flamethrowing instead. It depends how the fights are. If there's a long range fight, then maybe Flamethrowing will be a lot better. 5 out of 5 in Firepower, 1 in Combustion, 3 in Elemental Precision, 2 in Frost Warding, and 5 out of 5 in Ice Shards. Now we're using Ice Shards because we're using Frost Firebolt. So when we're using Frost Firebolt, this will help it as well. For the head, we know the head runes now. I'm just using Advanced Warding because it brings the most value for fire. The bottom one is for Arcane Healer and doesn't seem that great. Deep Freeze, obviously we can't really use, so we use Advanced Warning. For chest, it's Burnout. For wrist, it's Bale Firebolt. For hands, it's Living Bomb. For waist, it's Frost Firebolt. For legs, it's actually Icy Veins. Icy Veins is really good. It's a lot better than Living Flame now, and it sims a lot higher. And then for feet, we have Spell Power. So these are pretty much the lock-in talents. Like I said, if you didn't want to play Blast Wave or Pyroblast, you could take Flamethrowing. So we're going to quickly look at the best in slot gear. So we've got the Eye of the Flame here on the head, which is extremely rare. It's going to be very expensive, but it is really good with 43 fire damage. If you can't get that, then the next best will probably be the Visage of Exiled. It's 20 intellect and 21 spell damage with 1% hit, but the Eye of Flame is very, very good. If you happen to get this, then you're very lucky. The neck, we're using the Mage neck. Now, we have been told that the Mage quests, all class quests will be buffed. So this should be buffed. This won't be the final version, but even still, as the final version, it's the best neck. For the shoulders, we're using these Fractured Mind Pauldrons. These are simming higher than the other ones. So basically, this is the tailoring shoulders. It gives you 18 spell damage, 14 intellect, 12 spirit, and there's a chance to increase your casting speed by 10%. The other ones you can get are these ones, which don't have as much spell power on, but there's a chance to give you 30 spell damage and 2% dodge. But actually these Mind Pauldrons are working out a little bit better, so we are using these ones. For the cloak, we'll be using this one, Haku's Hex Cape. It's got 10 intellect and 15 spell damage. For the set, we'll be using this set. It's a really nice set. There's not much else to say. It's got 11 intellect, it's got a bit of stamina, it's got 23 spell damage and 1% crit. Really nice. Obviously the set bonus is the 1% hit, but we don't really need the hit now. But it's also got 18 spell damage as a set bonus, which is really nice. Now the wrists, we'll be using the Warsong Gulch bracers. If you're not exalted, then you should consider going engineering, because engineering will get these ones, which are very similar. It's actually 1 spell damage more. It's a bit more intellect, but there's a chance to obviously grant immunity to fear. But if you are exalted, then engineering doesn't seem as good, so I wouldn't go for engineering. But if you don't have these, or even if you like using bombs and engineering, then you may as well make these as well. For the dagger, we're using this dagger here. So the Hubris the Bandit Brander. Now this is the best option you can get. Otherwise there is this fire option as well. It's slightly more spell damage, but it hasn't got the intellect on it. So either of these, if this one drops, then obviously go for it. But the best one will be the Hubris the Bandit Brander. For the offhand, we'll be using this one. We can't sim exactly to this, but this is the one that's been data mined. It could be changed slightly. We'll have to wait and see. Another drop that's very interesting is this one, the personal spellbook. It's worth picking up as well because you can obviously create the comprehension charms. So it's basically like 3 comprehensive charms. So that's really good as well, and it's got 21 spell damage. But this one will be very, very good with 30 fire damage total. Well, 23 fire damage and 7 spell damage. For the gloves, we'll be using the Hex's gloves, 16 intellect and 19 spell damage. For the belt, we'll just be using a green fiery belt with 26 spell damage. If it happens to be very expensive, then obviously there is a drop in the raid, but it's not quite as good. We'll give you 1% hit, 10 stamina, 9 intellect, 14 spell damage. But the green fiery wrath one is slightly better. The legs, we'll be using the set legs, like I said before. This has 23 spell damage on it, 19 intellect. It's a very, very nice set. Same with the boots. The boots have 15 spell damage and 1% hit. We're getting so much hit this time, but now we've got elemental precision, so we won't need it as much, but it is pretty funny. For the rings, we've got the Band of Boiling Blood. Now, I was really confused by this because this is the new Blood Moon event reward, but it's not that great. So we seem to have got basically rings again, but it's only 1 fire damage more than the level 30 version, than the level 40 version, sorry. So I don't know if that's accurate. It seems not that great. It seems a bit boring. A lot of other classes have got something different, but there we go. We've also got the new Drakeclaw's Band of the Harbinger, 15 spell damage and 11 intellect. Then for the trinkets, we're going to use the miniaturized combustion chamber. If you didn't get that, you can also get this one in the raid, which has 12 spell damage on it. If you don't have that, you can still use the Void Pearl. And for the main trinket, we'll be using this new one. Basically, it increases your spell damage by 96 for 20 seconds, and then every time you cast a spell, you lose 8 spell damage. But obviously this is an on use, so you'll use it with your combustion, and it's very, very strong, so it's simming a lot higher. Another option is to use the miniaturized combustion chamber with the 4 or the Invoker's Void Pearl. Then for the wand, we've got this Wizard's Hand of Fiery Wrath, which is 19 spell damage. Not sure if it will be in the game, because last time it wasn't in the game, or it was very, very rare. So another option is to do BRD. I'm not sure how easy this will be, but there is a good wand in there which gives you 13 fire damage. Otherwise, you've still got the Rage Fire wand or the Gear Shifter from phase 2. So basically, this is the BiS Gear now. There's a lot of options, but these will basically be the best ones. So if you can pick up all of this, then you'll be laughing. Right, now we're going to be looking at the simulation for this build. Obviously, we've imported the build in. We're popping combustion at 9 seconds and icy veins just before at 8 seconds. This has worked out the best. We've got mage armor, so because it's a 20-man raid, we can safely say that we're going to get all of the buffs. So let's just do it like that. Got the new world buff here, so we'll add that. That's all of the ones I'll add from there. Obviously, you're going to use major mana potion, food of 10 intellect, the wizard oil. We're going to use a scroll of power, which is 1% crit. We're going to use a scroll of recovery, which is 8 MP5. Now we've got access to the greater firepower, which is 40 spell power, and we've got the greater arcane elixir, which is 35 spell power. So those are really nice compared to the last ones we were using. And then we can use the enchanted sigil Living Dreams, which is 30 spell power for enchanters only. So this is based off having tailoring and enchanting, which I've found out to be the best. So now we're just going to run the simulation for this build. And as you can see, we've simmed 1396 DPS with a top end of 1946. It was about right. In my last video I was saying about 1500 DPS. This is on a 30-second fight. Now someone did make a good point saying it's unlikely that it'll be 30 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is simulate it at 45 seconds. So it's 1266 at 45 seconds. We're going to simulate it now at 60 seconds. 1208. Going to sim it at 90 seconds. 1183. And then we're going to sim it at 2 minutes. Which is 1144. So if you see the history here, obviously the 30-second fight is 1396, and then the 45-second 1266, and the 60-second 1208, 90-second is 1183, and the 2-minute is 1144. Now that is pretty good to me. So the person that was saying, oh, it's not going to be a 30-second fight, well, doing over 1200 DPS for a minute fight is really, really good. And we'll find out some tips and tricks when we're actually in the phase. There might be things like buttons, like some of the Nomagon bosses had buttons so you could restore mana. There's going to be a lot of things, but the main thing is with this build, if you're going into it, you can, one, know that you're doing really good DPS, and two, that you're using Frost Firebolt. Now, Frost Firebolt is really, really mana efficient, so you could probably go on for 2 minutes, you could probably go on for 3 minutes, you know, and your DPS is not going to suffer that much. These are all the spells for the latest one, so you can see obviously we use 18 Bellfire bolts. So basically how this rotation will work is we use 9 Bellfire bolts, obviously after the Scorches. So there'll be 5 Scorches, 9 Bellfire bolts, then we'll go on to the Frostfire bolts. Then obviously when the debuff ends on the Bellfire bolts, we'll be going back to Bellfire bolts. In between that, we want to maintain our improved Scorch, and we want to maintain Living Bomb. So it's going to be a very, very good rotation. It's a bit of fresh air from the RNG around hot streaks. There is a few more builds we're going to test, but this was for the fire. So the next one will be probably Arcane or the Frost build. Let me know what you want to see in the comments. But yeah, it's looking really good so far. 1396 DPS. I'm not sure how much other classes are doing, but I'm pretty happy with that amount of DPS, and I'm looking forward to getting into the phase. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and have a good one.